Hey folks, this is Trey. As promised, we're posting some additional segments from our last episode, My Friend from Camp, that we just couldn't fit in. If you haven't heard that episode yet, by all means head over to your Us and Them feed and have a listen to that one first. These segments will make a whole lot more sense once you've heard that full episode. First, I had a question for former Guantanamo detainee Moazzam Begg about the meaning of the term jihad. I just want to ask you, since 9/11, the term jihad has kind of become a buzzword that's synonymous with holy war, and it's tossed around by everyone from politicians and to the people in the general public. But I understand that the term is more nuanced, and I just wanted you to tell me, like, what does jihad mean to you, and what is the importance to Islam as you understand it?
I mean, first of all, I think jihad is an Islamic term. Let's get that absolutely straight. It's not an English term, and it's not a Western term. So it must be. If you want to understand it, you must understand it as early Muslims understood it when it was first introduced. And of course, there are many scriptural sources that describe jihad as many different things. It's an internal struggle, a struggle against the devil that resides within. It's a struggle against the daily continuance of life and so forth. But the books of Islamic law and jurisprudence unanimously, when they talk about jihad, they talk about it in a military context. And that anybody who has just a rudimentary reading of jihad will see that. Jihad doesn't mean holy war. Holy war is harb muqaddas, which means holy war. Jihad is a struggle for all sorts of things, but in its legal sense, it's a pride in its military sense. But therein you find the problem, because if you talk about military jihad, people then jump to the conclusion and think jihad means terrorism. No, it doesn't, because the word irhab in Arabic, that means terrorism. That means terrifying the enemy and so forth, or terrifying ordinary people. And it is just as outlawed, just as prohibited in the Islamic world as it is in the Western world. And as I said, the concept of jihad is mostly invoked in actions of self-defense, whether it's, I mean, as I said, my grandfather fought in the Second World War, his father fought in the First World War. The British government at the time asked for Islamic scholars to issue edicts, religious edicts, saying that it was jihad to fight against the Germans or to fight against the Japanese in both world wars. And the Germans, not to be outdone, also did the same thing, is to have edicts issued to say it was jihad to join with the Ottomans against the Western powers in World War I. So the concept of jihad has been used by whoever it suits their purpose. But as I said, to me, what it means is as a noble struggle. It means rising up above necessarily sometimes being magnanimous towards your enemies, not letting your enemy become your teacher, not overstepping the rules. And remember, to my knowledge, the Islamic rules of jihad were the very first implemented in amongst any civilization, and those rules meant that you couldn't transgress certain boundaries, killing children, killing women, killing old people, targeting places of worship, this scorched earth policy, burning things down. All of that was prohibited in the original texts and the concepts of jihad. So what's being done today by whoever, Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram or ISIS or any of these guys, whilst they will call it jihad and will interpret it the way they wish, it has little bearing on the original concepts of jihad.
I also note that one of the things that I've heard you say is that jihad could also be taking a stand, an unpopular stand on a position, say a government who is doing something that you feel is wrong and immoral and against Islam. Just to literally stand up and be the voice to ring the alarm bell on that. I mean, that's a form of jihad, no?
Right. Actually, thank you for reminding me of that, because there is actually a prophetic saying, which is an authentic saying agreed upon by all Muslims, and that is that the greatest jihad is to speak a word of truth against an oppressive tyrant. So that essentially means, because you as a layperson or as a person who is able to speak truth to power will by necessity be targeted by the state if you speak truth to power, if you do that great jihad. There's also another prophetic saying which says that the master of the martyrs is, it was the uncle of the prophet who was killed in a particular battle, who's the highest rank, but also and the one who speaks the word of truth against an oppressive tyrant and is killed for it. So I mean, it's in the ranks of your words are much more powerful than any military action you could take, and it's those words that sometimes, as we see in many places, that become the thing that people in despotic nations don't want to hear.
Also from this My Friend from Camp episode, Moazzam Begg described how during solitary confinement his faith was at an all-time low. And he asked his guard, Albert Melise, if he should give up the practice of his Muslim faith. And you heard Melise reject that idea outright. But I wondered if during his time of being held at Guantanamo, or before that when he was at Bagram, if others encouraged him to abandon Islam altogether. One thing that when he told me that, I kept thinking, okay, that's what it's like when Albert, is with Moazzam. Mm-hmm. But what if it was, somebody who, comes from the part of America that I come from, Appalachia, and they are steeped in the fundamentalist Christianity. And if you were to ask that question, I would think that somebody might say, a guard from that background might say, yeah, brother, it's time for you to give up that devil religion of Islam, and Jesus loves you. And I mean, did anything like that happen?
Yeah, it did. It happened a couple of times, actually. It happened a couple of times.
Why am I not surprised?
It happened in Bagram once with a Southern Baptist, and it happened with an interrogator as soon as I came into Guantanamo. I was shocked, actually. But with Bagram, I wasn't so shocked, because we would have discussion about religion, and I'm kind of fairly well versed with the Bible, so I can have discussions about that, and I think I can. I did have lots of discussions. In fact, I've got notes that I wrote to this day I still have with me, which are quotations from the Bible, which confirm, in my view, and some of the concepts of monotheism, of the belief in one God, and that Jesus didn't say he's God, that whatever is God's is not for Jesus to give. You must ask Jesus' Father, as it were. So I was having these discussions with some of the Christian soldiers, but they were good discussions. One of the Southern Baptists said to me, get down on one knee and pray sincerely for guidance. And I thought, does that contradict any of my Islamic faith? It doesn't. So I did. And the next day, an American soldier came over to me and he said, can you tell me, I want to become a Muslim? How do I become a Muslim? I thought, okay, maybe that's an answer to what this guy is saying. The second one was an interrogator. At the end of a long interrogation, he leaves behind this leaflet, which is all about accepting Jesus Christ as your savior. And he did it when the other interrogator had left. So he didn't do it in front of her. He did it. And he left it to me to look at. And I was shocked, because I thought, that's just not professional at all, is it? It's not. This kind of, if I had been somebody else, a lot of the Arab prisoners always felt that this was a crusade. This is the term they used. They would describe this as a crusade. It's a religious war. I'm not sure. I don't know if I necessarily felt that. Some people did see it in this way.
That's former Guantanamo detainee Moazzam Begg. After everything that former MP Albert Melise had been through at Guantanamo, the bonds he developed with detainees like Begg and others were really strong. At some point your tour of service was up and you were shipped out of Guantanamo. And what I understand was that you tried to either stay or re-enlist. Why did you do that?
I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to Gitmo.
Why?
I wanted to go re-enlist to go back to make sure they have an easier time. But I didn't realize there's other soldiers like me. Again, we didn't tell anybody. We kept our stuff secret from everyone else. So we didn't know this one did that until the end. I was like, holy shit, Saj, you did that? He goes, I'm not talking until we leave this fucking place because we know we can get in serious trouble. Because we didn't want to take that trip home and embarrassment and lose all your life that you had in the military over a guy you don't even know who lives 3,000 miles away or 15,000 miles away, whatever.
Former Guantanamo MP Albert Melise. In our previous episode, Suburb of Hell, I spoke with journalist Andrea Pitzer, author of One Long Night, A Global History of Concentration Camps. For her book, she's done a great amount of research about the detention camp at Guantanamo. I asked her what the U.S. should do with the next big league terrorist they apprehend.
I'm not a lawyer, so this is an opinion more than an expert opinion. But wherever it is possible, I think that what we have had, and this isn't, I know it sounds like I'm being terribly idealistic and unrealistic about what happens in wartime, but what we are doing is not effective or efficient. We brought those guys to Guantanamo to give them speedy trials and administer swift justice. It didn't work. So sending more people to Guantanamo with the idea that we're going to do that this time seems unbelievably naive to me. What's been effective in dealing with terrorism so far is whenever possible to bring them into U.S. courts and try them there. We have had great success dealing with terrorist convictions in U.S. courts. We have not had great success doing it with military tribunals, and there's no reason to think that that's going to change.
Another question that we had to cut for time was whether the U.S. government will ever take responsibility for torturing people at Guantanamo or at black sites across the world.
We're in a really strange time right now, and so I think it's hard to see very far into the future of how things will likely go. There's the downside of a strain of American optimism that has let us do a lot of great things has been that we tend not to want to be accountable to our past. And that's a way to move forward. If you don't have the weight of the past, then you can sort of sail off and do all these things. But ultimately, I think as a country, we will be less able to move into the future, less able to have world leadership of any kind, less able to live with each other as human beings if we don't have accountability on these subjects. And so I believe we're in a time that's not very interested in accountability at the moment. And yet, I've seen again and again in history, other countries move through this with camp systems and, worse than we have even, and yet do come to accountability. I think the question is, how long will it take? And I hope it takes not very long, because I think these are all significant roadblocks to us being able to move forward as an integrated country.
We hope you enjoyed these additional segments. Tell us what you think about these or the full episodes, My Friend from Camp and Suburb of Hell, on Facebook. We'd really love to hear your thoughts. I'm Trey Kay. Thanks for checking this out, and we'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Music lifts us up and brings us together, even when we can't get together in person. Mountain Stage brings you live performances on the air, online, and in our podcast. They remind you how it feels to be in a live audience listening to live music. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find a link to our stations and our podcast online at mountainstage.org.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.